So assuming you've done well in lane, you can hopefully snowball this advantage into an easy win. But time and time again, you just seem to have a game slip from your grasp. Well, let's fix that. Hello ladies and gents, I'm the Dapperette, unless your card declined, and today I'm going to teach you nearly everything I know about macro gameplay in Deadlock. Now, for those asking, what do you mean macro gameplay? I'm referring to the overall strategy of your team that leads to winning the game. The decision between taking a fight, pushing an objective, or farming are all macro decisions. How you achieve these decisions after making them would be your micro gameplay. So, to get started, we need to address the most important tool in your macro gameplay arsenal, that being your map. The minimap is by far the most important tool at your disposal, as it gives you real-time updates of what's happening everywhere in the play area. The minimap is always giving you information even if it doesn't seem to, and as such, learning how to read this information lets you make good decisions, or at least try to. And so first, like with any map, we need to go over the legend, the piece that tells you what all the symbols are. These are your lanes, named York, Broadway, and Greenwich. The name of each lane's first letter corresponds with their color. York is yellow, Greenwich is green, and Broadway is obviously blue. This is important because when a character pings a lane, there's a pretty good chance they'll call it by name and not by the color, so beware of that. Lanes are dotted with objectives called your guardians, walkers, base guardians, shrines, patron, and weaken patron. Destroying the weaken patron wins your team the game. All these objectives have decaying resistances, so near the start of the game you do very low damage, but as time progresses these resistances get weaker. So beware of that and try to figure out when your build and your character can stand up to an objective. Next, the spaces between your lanes is jungle. These are where your camps, sinner sacrifices, and shops reside. Speaking of which, let's go over those. Camps are marked with a triangle, with the tier of camp being indicated by the lines underneath said triangle. No line is tier 1, 1 line is tier 2, and 2 lines is tier 3. Camps spawn different difficulties of enemies with regards to their stats, tier 1 camps being the weakest and 3 being the strongest. Killing these enemies will result in you getting souls, so they're really important. So important in fact that you get a dedicated video, so let's move on. Joining camps in that dedicated video though will be the Sinner's Sacrifice. These are vending machines that give souls and buffs for punching them, but will cost HP whenever you hit them. Sinners are marked on the map by a box with a circle on it. Next we have shops. There's one in each team spawn, 6 guardian shops that are only accessible so long as that guardian still stands, and 2 hidden jungle shops that are always open for business. A common mistake is continuously going back to spawn in order to buy new items. Once your guardian is lost and so long as you have HP, you should be using the hidden shops in the jungle as they give you easy access to 2 lanes, lets you pick up farm on the way to and from, as well as connects you to the other side of the map via teleporter. The shop is marked with the hut icon. Now, obviously, we aren't going to gloss over it. I did in fact say teleporter. There are 4 teleporters on the map, with them being linked in pairs. These teleporters are marked with a stick figure passing through a line. The final pieces are as follows. Urn spawns on either Greenwich or York, and depending on the souls of each team has a different drop-off location. The urn drops a bunch of souls for your entire team, and also will get its own dedicated video. Rejuvenator is dropped by a boss enemy located in the sewers underneath Broadway in the middle of the map, giving your entire team incredibly significant buffs, and also getting Rejuvenator its own video because it's also just as complicated as anything else. Bridge buffs spawn on top of these rooftop areas and grant limited time buffs according to their sigil. Casting is purple with a star and will grant ability related buffs like spirit damage and cooldown reduction. Weapon is orange with a bullet sigil and will grant weapon related buffs like weapon damage and fire rate. The vitality/health buff is green with a heart and will grant HP based buffs like max HP and health regen. And finally we have the mobility buff being the last, sporting blue and a stick figure as its sigil, and will grant, you guessed it, mobility based buffs like extra stamina and move speed. Each buff tends to be best on different characters, so learn what's best for you and give the buffs that aren't to other teammates. That being said, if an enemy contests it, just take it before they can. It's better that you get a useless buff than the enemy getting any buff at all. And that covers the entire legend of the minimap and is the easiest part for us to go over. The hard part is reading the inconsistent information and making decisions from there. Enemy players will be revealed on the mini-map if you or a teammate is currently looking at them, but also if any friendly trooper is looking at them. Troopers are your little minion guys that are constantly pushing and defending lanes to the best of their abilities. Abilities that shouldn't be overlooked, as they do a surprising amount of damage to objectives despite their small frame. Anyways, it's important to note that these spotting mechanics also apply to you. So long as a trooper or enemy spots you, you are highlighted to every other enemy on their minimap. These enemy locations let you make decisions based on risk, and I will give you a very easy way to determine these risks. Looking at the map, draw a line between where your troopers are located. Anything before this line is safe and anything past this line is dangerous. These lines are then reinforced or weakened by teammate and enemy positions. The lack of knowledge on enemy positions will automatically reinforce any areas a teammate is not present. With that in mind, there are two decisions you can make: go on the offensive or go on the defensive. There are two defensive options, and these are your defaults. Defensive option 1 is defending lane by killing troopers to crash the wave and poking enemies. Crashing the wave refers to letting troopers push the objective, while poking refers to doing damage at a range that is safe. The other is farming friendly jungle. This is done by crashing the wave and then heading into friendly jungle to farm camps. Friendly jungle is designated by the line method from before. The closer to the line you are, the less safe you are, and defense is all about safety, so always stay alert. You choose these defensive options when the information on enemy positions is inconclusive. 1v1 on Wark and 1v1 on Broadway leaves 4 enemies unaccounted for, meaning pushing Greenwich is asking for you to basically fight a 1v4. Alternatively, there are 4 offensive options. General offense is done by crashing the wave and killing enemies, and is almost entirely required to open up the other offensive options, unless the enemies are distracted. Pushing objective is done by crashing wave and following your minions to the objective to do extra damage. Enemies must be accounted for, meaning dead or locations known, of which they're far away. You also must do this within a proper time frame. The damage you do to a walker at 10 minutes is likely not worth it, and you should instead opt for invading enemy jungle. Speaking of invading enemy jungle is once again done by crashing the wave, I think you might be seeing a pattern here, and is done by stealing the enemy camps as designated on the unsafe side of the line. The caveat here is that the unsafe side shouldn't actually be unsafe, as once again, enemies should be accounted for. Finally, there is pushing advantage. This is once again done by, say it with me, crashing the wave, then proceeding to do one of the secondary objectives like delivering the urn or claiming Rejuvenator, once again, so long as enemies are accounted for. Now, for every single offensive option, there is an asterisk. You can do these offensive options without having enemies accounted for, so long as these other factors are in order. You are fed, meaning you have an excess amount of souls, making you stronger than a single player, letting you maybe 1v2 or even 1v3 depending on your character and how many souls you really have. You have numbers, meaning your teammates are around to help you achieve a common goal. It's okay for you to push a wave if you don't know where certain characters are, if there's 2 of you and just 1 of them. The other thing is that if you have a history, meaning micro gameplay from before, proves that you are in fact just better than certain players and will win every single 1v1 you have with them. But you have to beware of your ego, as it can easily become inflated and you'll just keep on feeding. The more of these factors that are in your favor, the greedier the play you can go for. The last caveat is hero specific. Some characters like Ivy, Doorman, and Mirage have abilities that make catching them without hard CC a nightmare. As such, they can often push objectives and invade enemy jungle relatively uncontested. They cannot, however, use these tactics for Urn and Rejuvenator, as the intent is to actually collect those and not give them to the enemy. Now, this video is already quite a bit longer than my other guides, so there's just one final thing I want to bring up, and that is split pushing. Split pushing is an incredibly easy strategy that relies on your team putting up a good defense while outnumbered, and can either break or even cripple an enemy's push. If your team is fighting a 5v6 on Broadway, instead of leaving York to help, you could instead push York, crashing the wave and trying to take the enemy objective instead. Of course, again, this is given that you're within an objective killing time frame. Shooting a walker at 10 minutes is hardly worth it. And with that, all the macro you need to get to Phantom has been bestowed. If you've enjoyed, consider leaving a like and subscribe. The playlist on the left will teach you more about Deadlock if you want to improve, while the video on the right is statistically the video you'd find most interesting. I don't know this because I'm a stalker, I know it because YouTube is a stalker. Thank you all for watching, I've been the Dapper Rat, and as always, farewell ladies and gents.